Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's
thanks.
great to be here in Munich. Great to see all of you here. As was just said, I'm here with Dan and Casper, and we're really excited to be here. I think I speak for all of us. Maybe after the third rewrite of the entire slide deck yesterday evening, we're a little bit too excited, but hopefully things will be just fine. As was just mentioned, this is actually the second Dart Summit. So last year we were in San Francisco, a little over 150 people there. Just maybe a show of hands, anyone who was there with us last year? Yeah, a few familiar faces. Really, really cool to see you again, and great to see so many new people here as well. We're in Munich. We actually have close to 300 people who registered for the event, so great to see that momentum as well. And obviously, wherever we'll be next year, hopefully we'll be even more, and hope to see all of you again.
On a boat somewhere.
Yeah, who knows where we'll end up. But actually, before kind of moving on to some of the great news that we're going to share with you, I wanted to, I have a confession. I want to be honest with you. If we take sort of a step back and look at where we were about a little over a year ago, when we met for the summit last time. This was right after we had announced the shift in strategy, where we moved away from the focus of having the Dart VM in Chrome to having Dart for the entire web, so having the ability to use all modern browsers, not just for deployment, but also for development. And you could say, in some sense, for some people, maybe it's been somewhat quiet in terms of news from our side. Even, at the time, it might feel like a setback in some sense for some people, especially kind of if you were looking at some of the encouragement we were getting on social media around this. But to tell you the actual story is that while maybe on the news side we've been somewhat quiet, actually we've been really, really busy. So what the shift in strategy allowed us to do was to do a lot of work with our key customers, understanding their use of Dart and help them expand their usage. We had over 10,000 commits just on the core SDK since that announcement. And so that's really allowed us to understand better what the issues were for our key customers, help them solve them, and really have Dart be a much more productive web stack for them. And that helps us end up where we are today, celebrating over the next 2 days a lot of these news. And in particular, Dart is, in all kinds of ways, very much an open source project. It is also, for Google, very serious business. So just for like one of our customers, there's more than $70 billion of revenue flowing through Dart software every year. Dart is a tech stack of choice for Google Ads. But we're not just seeing serious use of this. This is also kind of, if the revenue number isn't enough, these are not toy apps. We're talking about millions of lines of code, and we're seeing a tremendous amount of momentum inside of Google. Just over the past year, we've seen the amount of Dart code more than triple. And this actually makes Dart, I'm very happy to say, this is the fastest growing language inside Google. We're growing from a smaller base, admittedly, but still, this is really fantastic. Why are we seeing this momentum? I think one of the key themes that we see when talking to teams is that they get better velocity. We've seen increased productivity. Some teams have reported twice the productivity than what they had with their previous stack.
That's really significant. Like 2x productivity, that really makes a difference for any kind of team size.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And so what allowed us to get here was really this change in strategy and working really closely with our key customers in striving for Dart to become the most productive web stack for them. And who would be better to talk about this than you, Dan? You work quite closely with a lot of these teams.
I did. So who here can identify the products that these logos represent? Like, totally obvious, right? Like the upper one is AdWords for Google. Kind of a big product. This is AdSense down here, this yellow and, is that purple? Not sure. Green Tea is our customer relationship app. Google Fiber's logo actually tells you what they do, so that one's kind of easy. All of these are all Dart. So it's really amazing to see how much real stuff is being built on Dart at this point. Let's take a step back in time, though. Around the time of the summit last year, we saw this note from one of our VPs of engineering. This is a guy who runs, he has like, 1,000-ish people, 1,000 engineers working for him. And he was excited. And I was really happy that he was excited because if I roll back time a little bit further, like 6 months earlier, I'd been on vacation. And I got back from vacation, and I noticed I had a calendar appointment from him for the moment I arrived in the office. It's like, that is not good. Like, you do not want to have someone who's managing 1,000 people drop an appointment on your calendar for the day you get back from vacation at 8 o'clock in the morning, right?
Welcome back.
It's never a good sign. And we had a little discussion about areas that were hurting, and there were some things happening that were hurting productivity. And we spent a lot of time listening to those people, and Scott got very happy, and the ads engineering team got extremely happy. So what did we learn while we were listening? We learned that we had done a couple of things. We had a really nice language. So we had a language that was kind of walking this tightrope between being familiar, being modern. We have all kinds of nice, cool features, things like cascades, async and await. We have a terse language. This is something people really like if they're coming from the Java world. What we hear from Java developers is that they're often writing a third to half the number of lines of code when they move to Dart.
It's very consistent feedback we get. I think the terseness really works well. I think most people here probably feel that when they write Dart code, that having a terse, a flexible, nice-to-use language is really key.
Yeah, I mean, there is a balance, right? Like APL was terse too, but I don't know that it was highly productive. So, but I think we're actually at a pretty good spot, and it's really scalable. The teams that I talked about have dozens of core engineers and often hundreds of people contributing to their projects and contributing from around the world. So you have to build a system that really scales. And yet we want something that was still flexible and fun. And I think most people are enjoying programming in Dart, and that's why you guys are here. We feel pretty confident that we've actually reached a really nice balance. And I think we see a similar balance in the core libraries. I mean, there are a bunch of different approaches you can take to core libraries. You can go the JavaScript route and not really have any. You can go the Java route and have very, very large core libraries. We tried to reach a middle point and build something that was tight and comprehensive. And I think we wound up in a pretty good spot. We spent a lot of time making them coherent. And that was really nice. So things like streams are pervasive and really work well across the libraries.
Yeah, and I think that, especially with the coherency, when we introduced async await last year, it turned out that worked really well with the existing streams in the core library. So it's where coherency really paid off.
Yeah, and overall the libraries they're nice and efficient, so people are actually getting good performance out of these things. But when we listened further, what we learned was that this wasn't actually enough. Like, yes, we had a nice language, we had nice core libraries, but were they actually useful for web developers? And maybe this was why Scott set up that meeting with me. Something along these lines.
This is not Scott, by the way.
That's not Scott. So one of the questions that we heard from our users was, how can I use JS libraries? And our first answer was no. And that wound up not actually being the answer that a lot of people wanted to hear.
It was short, though.
It was terse.
Yes.
But not really flexible or fun. So we've built a new improved JS interop, and one thing that's really nice is that by waiting a little bit, the JavaScript community started learning about types, and they started building these things called TypeScript definition files and putting those out on the web so that you actually had types available for JavaScript libraries. So with our new JS interop system, you can convert TypeScript definition files to .dart files automatically. And this is fantastic because once you do that, you get all the benefits of IntelliJ, the Dart analyzer. You can just use that thing as if it's Dart. And we're launching this later today. So Jacob Richmond will be giving a talk on JS interop sometime today. I don't remember the schedule. You should come to that. And the rest of the talks. Another question that we got a lot was, how do I develop outside Dartium? And this could be as simple as I'm building an app for my Android phone using Chrome. We don't have Dartium on Android. Or I want to use another browser, right?
For a long time.
There are other browsers out there.
Yeah, for a long time, our answer to that question was use Dart2JS. But I worked on Dart2JS for a while, and it's a really good tool, but it's not super fast. So if you have that in your development workflow, it's going to slow you down. So we need something better.
It especially slows you down if you're building a big app. We have teams at Google for whom Darts.js takes several minutes to compile, and that doesn't fit the fun box for that we checked off earlier. So we built this thing called the Dart Dev Compiler, and this is really super. So one of the nice things it does is it does modular compilation. So how many of you have used Darts.js? Lots of people.
Lots of people.
It produces essentially one giant JS file, or maybe a few if you're doing deferred loading. What we do with the dev compiler is instead we compile library by library. So the idea is that if your application's made up of 100 libraries, you'll have 100 JS files, and you'll only recompile the ones that are necessary. So this makes it much, much faster. Another thing that was fantastic was Chrome started building extension points in DevTools. So if you're used to the Dartium DevTools, we can actually provide you with all those features, even with the Dart Dev Compiler in Chrome. And the way this came about was pretty funny. One of our team members had worked on another compilation to JS project several years ago and worked with the Chrome team to get these extension points in. He left that team and then came to our team. And then we realized that we needed this. And at that point, this stuff landed in Chrome. And so we were able to use it. And it's really a nice experience. So all those cool Dartium things like a REPL, you can do all of that with the dev compiler. Browsers were also catching up here with some nice ES6 support, and that lets us put out much nicer JavaScript in the dev compiler. And all this adds up to give you nice cross-browser support, which we're working on today. So right now you can use Chrome for this. You don't need to use Dartium, so you don't need to wait for us to get Dartium up to date, which is often challenging. You just use the regular Chrome on your desktop. We're also working on Safari right now, and we will be working on Firefox and Edge in the near future. And the amazing thing about this is that with the dev compiler, you can get fast edit refresh at real scale. So we're talking 100,000 lines of code. Typical refresh is going to be under a second with the dev compiler. So no more need for Dartium with dev compiler. You can use this, and you can get a really beautiful fast edit refresh cycle.
Very slick.
There's other stuff that needed to happen to improve the dev cycle, though. Transformers were an area that was kind of painful, and like anyone who's used these will probably recognize this. It was things like not putting the artifacts that were created on disk made it kind of hard to see what was happening. We're replacing this with a code generation system that actually will put artifacts on disk so you can go read them, play with them, mess with them, see what you did wrong. Faster static analysis was something where we did a bunch of changes to the Dart analyzer. Part of this was in support of the Dart dev compiler. And the end result here is that the analyzer can basically operate on summaries, which are essentially module by module summarizations of your application. So rather than having to look at the whole application monolithically, the analyzer can only look at things that have changed. One of my favorite things, and this is many people think this is a tiny thing, but getting formatting right.
That was very popular.
It's really irritating, right, to send out a code review and have people tell you that you formatted things wrong. What do they know?
My formatting is the best.
Right. So we decided to solve this, and we let Bob define how things would get formatted. So, and actually, this is working out great because it eliminates a huge set of issues in code reviews. And the thing is that people love picking on formatting in code reviews, right? Because it's really easy. You just get to go needle someone. You don't have to actually think about it. It's just move this around. We got rid of this. It's fantastic. And finally, we've done a lot of work with JetBrains to make IntelliJ much better. And one thing that is fantastic is that this gives us a great story for both our web and our mobile stories. So IntelliJ is becoming a really key piece of our development cycle. There were other questions, though. When we started talking about building things like AdWords in Dart, we got lots of questions from teams about scalability. Mm-hmm. We'd never built something this large before.
It was somewhat bigger than what we started with. So these are really, really significant apps, and they grow really quickly too.
Exactly. So one of the things that we found was that we really needed a solid and trustworthy type system to enable scalability, and we also needed a fast and modular build system. And so we've been working on both of these over the past 2 years or so. So one of the things we found was that stronger types scale better. So it's no secret that within Google, we develop all of our source code that's for internal use inside one gigantic tree. And if you want to be able to do things like refactoring, you have to be able to do refactoring across all the code that Google's ever written. It's kind of a large amount of code. And that was very difficult to do with the original Dart type system, because the type system was kind of squishy, right? And so we developed strong mode. And the key points with strong mode, and Leaf will be talking about this later today, are that type errors actually matter. So in Dart 1, type errors were type warnings, right? Like you could keep running, it was no problem. In strong mode, type errors actually matter, period. We also use type inference. So the idea is that within it should be obvious to all tools that if you say something like, var x equals a string, that x is actually a string. And this is something that is pretty intuitive to users, but is something I think many people thought Dart was operating this way because it's kind of tricky, but it wasn't really. And now with strong mode, it will be. The other thing that's important for this is that we're adding generic methods to Dart. And the reason for this is pretty obvious. If you actually care about types, which you do in strong mode, you don't want to be dropping those types on the floor every time you're passing through a generic.
Yeah, and I think that you mentioned introducing strong mode as a way to better scale your code. I think it also serves another purpose from talking to external teams. I talked with Soundtrap, a Swedish startup, long-term Dart user, a few weeks back, and got really positive feedback. They found out about strong mode, started using it, and just getting the error messages earlier on was just a huge benefit for them as well. Kim mentioned this as well. He's giving a talk tomorrow. We've also had a very good experience trying out strong mode.
Yeah, it's kind of like people would rather find out about errors at development time than when they deploy things. But it's just an idea. Another question we heard a lot was, okay, you've got all this cool stuff, but my job is basically building web applications, and I need to be able to build really nice UIs, and I need to be able to build them fast. So when we started off, we said, oh, well, you have Dart HTML. Some people like that. Like, it's a kind of nice library, but it's not really enough to make people super happy, at least most people. And we did a couple of iterations here as we tried to home in on what we thought the right answer was. So we did a lot of work with Polymer. Probably some of you have experimented with that. And we were wrapping a JS library. We weren't thrilled with it. Started working with the Angular team and came up with something that felt pretty nice to program with Angular 1, but it also didn't have the performance that we wanted, and it didn't have that Darty feel. It was using mirrors. It was something that wasn't quite what we wanted to get to. And so over the last year or so, we've been working with the Angular team to get Angular 2 Dart out the door. And I'm happy to say that Angular Dart 2.0 is launching today, and this is a really nice system. So you'll be hearing more about this in just a few minutes from Ferhat and Matan. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about this is it's idiomatic Dart. So there is no more JavaScript legacy in Angular Dart 2.0. This is all Dart, in Dart, for Dart. It's getting faster and faster. In the last couple of months, I think we've seen a 10% speed increase, and I know Ferhat promises me that there's more on the table. An amazing thing by moving it into Dart and really making it focused on how does this thing work when compiled to Dart.js is that it's gotten 40% smaller JS output just in the last 4 months. So I figure if we do this for another year or so, we should be
good.
Should be pretty good.
Yeah.
And this is used heavily today. So all these things that we were talking about, like AdWords, AdSense, Google Fiber, they're all using this. This is the core of Google's ads tech stack, and it is in critical in the sense that I like getting paid use today. So this is really, really important. And you can use it too.
It's been in production for a while.
Oh yeah, like a number of quarters at this point. But even that wasn't really enough, right? People wanted to know where their components were, because even if you give them Angular, even if you give them this great language, you give them these nice libraries, people still want more. They want to not write their own components. And well, guess what? We created a ton of components as we built all these applications. And these components are shared across many of our applications within Google. And we're launching a preview today of Angular Dart components. These are material design components that you can use in your application. They're industrial strength. They work cross-browser. They're really nicely done. There's an actual UI team that works on making sure that these comply with the material design spec. So you can start using these and playing with them now. So overall, we finally feel like we've got a really great web stack. So we've got the language, we've got the core libraries, we've got the ecosystem, which many of you all have contributed to. And I think things like getting pub.dartlang.org out early so that we had a coherent place to share stuff was wonderful for the ecosystem. We've got a great framework. We've got components. So we've got the full web stack. And now we feel really ready for the future. We've made it really easy to build JavaScript or use JavaScript libraries. We've got these incredibly fast dev cycles using the dev compiler. Scalability, that's incredible, really for best-in-class kind of scalability. And we've made it really easy to build high-performance UIs.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a really nice future, but it's not the entire future. There's a whole other sort of set of things that we could be doing and that we are doing that I want to give you a sort of a sneak preview into. But to make sure that it actually is something that will interest you guys, I started looking at what kind of things were popular at the last summit. And there was one talk that was just way more popular than anything else.
It was my talk, right?
That was not your talk. It was not my talk either. Most of it was fairly popular, but this one talk here had 50% of all views on YouTube of these presentations in one single talk. And the talk was about writing Dart code for mobile devices. It's called Sky, an experiment writing Dart for mobile. And it showed something kind of neat. It showed you a way to write Dart code that ended up on a mobile device. In this case, like showing a spinning cube on a real phone. And in some ways, it's a bit surprising that you get that many views on a video, a presentation that shows you a spinning cube on a device. So I wonder, why is that so popular? Are you guys really so impressed with spinning cubes? Some people are saying yes. That's kind of neat. I think the reason why you guys are excited about this, and the reason why I'm excited about this, is it holds promise. It shows you that there might be a way in the future where you can write for Android and iOS, build really high performance, really slick mobile apps for both kinds of devices from a single code base based on Dart. I think that kind of promise is really exciting. Maybe as importantly, though, it also showed you a way to write mobile apps in a way that was very pleasant and approachable. I think the native stacks out there today are really useful, and you can write wonderful things with that. But there is something to be said for a more pleasant, more delightful experience, something that's much easier to get started on. And what Eric showed you last year was just much easier to get going with. Like, you type in the Dart code, you hit a button, and you have it on the device. It's really simple, slick, and I think that sort of got you guys excited about what we could do with that. So this was basically the talk from 1.5 years ago. And things have happened since then. It was called Sky back in the day. Now it's called Flutter. It has a new spiffy logo. But this is not the most interesting thing that's happened, right? We've actually gone from spinning cubes to being able to have like real, modern, beautiful UIs on Android and iOS from the same source base. And I think my main point with this is that you do not want to be late for the keynote tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to spend a lot of time on mobile, starting with the keynote and then diving into the Dart technologies that power Dart for mobile and Flutter. So I think tomorrow will prove to be another exciting day at the summit. So I think mobile is clearly an area for us that excites you and excites us, and something we are investing in very heavily. It's a very exciting part of our future. But I think maybe the main takeaway for you guys here is that Dart is doing really well. We have a very productive stack. We're growing really fast. Hannes mentioned it, like, Dart is the fastest growing language at Google. That's really significant. Furthermore, maybe that's one of the things that makes us really proud here, is that Dart actually powers Google's most critical apps. Like the $70 billion is, I almost want to impersonate Dr. Evil when I say that number.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's really almost two big numbers, right? But it's kind of interesting for us to be part of that. It's really significant. And maybe for you guys, even more importantly, it's ready for you. You can actually start using the same stack and use the fact that we have a full Dart web stack.